Hello, I'm Susan Kilby. I'm the Heritage Education Officer for the Charnwood Forest Geopark, and I'm also a medieval landscape historian.
Hello, my name's John Berkavitch and I'm a poet. So Susan, we're here today to talk about medieval and in particular Anglo-Saxon poetry. What can you tell me? Did the Anglo-Saxons write poetry?
They wrote absolutely loads of poetry, John. The one that most people will have heard of is Beowulf, of course, that great epic poem. But the Anglo-Saxons wrote all kinds of poems. One of my favourite forms of Anglo-Saxon poetry is riddles.
Oh, I love riddles. So what did Anglo-Saxons write riddles about?
They drew their inspiration from all sorts of things, but I think that the thing that they drew upon the most was the natural world and things like trees and animals.
Okay, amazing. You've given me an Anglo-Saxon riddle to read, so we'll do that now. I grew in a field where the earth and clouds of heaven fed me, until, when I was old, fierce enemies changed me from what I'd been, took me and shook me from the earth, and against my nature made me bow to a soldier's service. Now I am busy in my master's hands. He cherishes me, and in the battle fights with skillful control. Sometimes I streak towards a fortress that was peaceful before I came. Say what my name is. What an interesting riddle. So, Susan, what do you think is the answer to this riddle? What do you think the writer is talking about?
It's a really good question, John, and there are several potential answers, in fact. So the Anglo-Saxons really enjoyed playing with words and ensuring that there was some kind of ambiguity in all of the riddles that they created. So some scholars think it means a battering ram, and some scholars think it means a spear. So you can interpret that in many, many different ways. And I think that the key thing to take away from thinking about Anglo-Saxon riddles is that they are meant to be ambiguous.
Right, I really like that about them. I like that it's actually hard to work out the answer. I think there is potentially a chance that you could make it very simple. And I think that what's happening in these riddles is a layer of complexity that I really enjoy. I also really enjoy the way that these riddles are written is through a first person. So the writers are using personification to become the objects, and they're giving those objects human characteristics, and they're talking about them as if they are them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's exactly what the Anglo-Saxons intended. And I think that for them, they loved to use a sort of play on words. And the more complicated they could make those riddles, the happier they were.
Now we're going to write our own riddles. In order to do this, firstly, you'll need to choose the subject. This subject can be anything from Charnwood Forest. Maybe it's an object that already exists in its completed state. Maybe it's something that's been man-made from a natural object. When I'm saying objects, what I mean is anything that doesn't breathe. Your object could be tiny, it could be a grain of sand. It could be enormous, it could be a mountain. Have a look around. What do you choose? Once you've got a few ideas, think about it like this. You're going to personify this object. You're going to become it. Which of your choices is the most interesting for that? I'm going to ask you a sequence of questions, and you're going to answer as your object. Make sure you're answering full sentences. That will help you later on. Where were you created? Where do you live? Have you always looked the way that you look? Or has something changed? If you've changed, what caused that? Do you make any sounds? And if so, what sounds do you make? When are you most useful? What's your relationship to humans? How do most humans feel about you? Do you have any enemies? If so, who or what are they? Who are your family? Who are your friends? And who are your neighbours? What are you proud of? What do you dream of? What scares you? If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? If you could change one thing about the world, what would that be? What kind of mood are you normally in? What's your earliest memory? How do you pass most of your time? Who do you love and who do you hate? What kind of colours and textures do you have on your outside? Is your inside different to your outside, or are you the same all the way through? Do you have any secrets? If you had one wish, what would it be? What are your most distinctive features? So now it's time to craft our riddle. We've been out and mined all the information, farming our landscape and really jumping in on our object. Now we're going to gather all of our bits of writing and we're going to start reading through and working out what bits we definitely need to include. What are our most important parts that really tell the story of our object? We're going to take all of this information and we're going to read through it first. We're going to choose what are our most important bits and we're going to make sure that all of those bits go into our riddle. At this point, we can get rid of anything that isn't relevant for us. Some of the questions might not have got great answers, and that's fine. Also, I'm going to look at removing anything that's a bit too obvious. If I've said that my family are all other trees, it makes it very clear that I'm a tree. And remember, we're trying to keep some of that Anglo-Saxon ambiguity in there. For my next step, I'm going to look at all the verbs. Verbs are doing words, and they have the power to completely transform a sentence. I'm going to try and focus on very human-feeling verbs. So instead of my tree's roots going into the ground, maybe they're holding the ground, or they're grabbing the earth. Instead of the rocks protruding up through the earth's surface, perhaps they're biting through the soil. Let's see what you can do with your verbs to make your object sound even more human. Now, I'm going to look over my poem again, and this time I'm going to see if I can add any more detail. Perhaps they can do something that can help really clarify an image or a picture. Remember, when you're reading the riddles, We will all create pictures in our minds based on what you describe. So the more description, the better. The final touches of the poem are for me to think about if I want to use any additional poetic tools. Perhaps alliteration and rhyme might be something I want to use. Maybe there's space for a simile or a metaphor. It's up to you. Now we have a final version of your poem. Try saying it out loud a few times. Does it sound right as you're saying it? Remember, a lot of these Anglo-Saxon riddles would not have been written down. They'd have been passed on orally. So it needs to sound right, as well as read right. So the only thing left is for you to read your riddle out, and for everyone else to try and guess. What are you?